the big news has finally dropped, which we was all kind of expecting anyway, but it just hadn't happened yet. But fortunately, it didn't get to the point where it secured the longest heavyweight title reign in UFC history. Mr. Jon Jones has officially called it a day, boys. Nathan, you take us away with your initial thoughts on this. I've got a lot of thoughts. We'll go to you first, then Alex, and then come back to me.
Look, it's a stain on his legacy. That's what it is. Forever will be. He avoided Tom Aspinall. That's as far as you can look. And I do think the timing of the retirement is interesting when you consider what's been happening in Jon Jones' personal life recently. Those criminal charges he picked up the other week, and it doesn't read very well. It's quite bad. It's probably one of the worst ones he's done, and that's a shame that we're saying plural on that because it's not his first rodeo. But yeah, look, he made a star out of Tom Aspinall. That's one thing you can say. The fact that Jon Jones was so scared to fight him made Tom Aspinall an even bigger star and made him even more feared by people in the UFC. So it's interesting. It's just sad, really. It's Jon Jones, no matter what he's done outside the octagon, and look, he's done a lot. And if you don't like Jon Jones, it's fair enough. He's given you plenty of reason not to. Inside the octagon, he's one of the greatest fighters ever. But recency bias will always maintain throughout. And the last memory of Jon Jones is a man that was scared to fight Tom Aspinall, and that is the truth. I don't blame him. I'd be scared too. But I'm not the almost undefeated MMA fighter that is the current champion. So it's a real stain on his legacy. This whole period, including what's going on in his personal. So yeah, it's not the way you want to go out. It's not a good exit. It wouldn't surprise me if this retirement is short-lived, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I've got loads of thoughts on the matter. I think first of all, but when you said doesn't read well on paper, doesn't that sum up Jon Jones' entire career? Like the amount of things what have gone sideways for him. But I don't think it's related. I was watching a few interviews and a few video clips here and there, and I don't think they're related. He was saying like the money's just fallen into his hands recently, and he's getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars just for showing up to places and just showing his face, and he's reaping the fruits of his labour. He's getting his flowers. But with Jon Jones, when you put, depending on how you look at the steroid stuff and his past controversies, when you put all that to aside, Jon Jones is the greatest mixed martial artist. Between him and maybe GSP, But like you say, it does kind of leave a bit of a sour taste in your mouth, this retiring now, all this build up to fight Tom, and it's just so anticlimactic. It's like, I saw on his Instagram he took a job working for Ketones, so he's in an office, what a big switch up, what a big, like it's like what the fuck, what the fuck? He was expecting this big mega fight, and now he's just showing up to parties, and he just retired on a random Friday night, tried on a
Yeah, the one thing is. The word to describe it, the way it's ended, is it's stained and it's tainted his legacy slightly. So here's a timeline of events which the British MMA scene posted. UFC 151, the event was scrapped. UFC 182, positive test classes. UFC 187, arrested, stripped, suspended. UFC 200, positive test suspended. UFC 214, positive test suspended. UFC 232, positive test, event moved to between 2020 and 2023. Lengthy layoff for ? Francis, 23 to 25, outright refusal to fight Tom, which it doesn't really read well, that does it? So if we compare it to other high-level, intense sports, so let's look at Lance Armstrong, for example. He had all his accolades stripped. Does it not stand for mixed martial arts? It's a good point to be made. However, in terms of ability and what he did against each style of different mixed martial artists on his way to becoming the greatest light heavyweight champion of all time, it's undeniable. And let's face it, nearly every fucking fighter in the game is on something. So sport would be shit without steroids. But yeah, it's stained his legacy. I won't want to fight Tom Aspinall either, because, and let's have it right, as I just said, Jon Jones is the greatest light heavyweight of all time. That's a fact. That's undoubted. But is it the greatest of all time? If you bring his heavyweight legacy into it, no, because it's been nothing short of bullshit.
No, definitely not. Yeah,
it's been nothing short of bullshit. It's probably one of the worst.
Yeah, his heavyweight run's been atrocious.
Yeah, and to the modern fan, like, let's say a lot of people got into watching UFC sort of around COVID. I mean, I'm a relatively modern fan, a bit before that, but like, you know, you look at the Reyes fight, these weren't like glistening performances, you know, bar the Cyril Gane one, which felt just like a bit of a, you know, look, he did really well to win the fight, but you know, that was just sort of a steamrolling. So people don't really leave with, oh, this guy's incredible. They probably left. I mean, I left that fight thinking, oh, Cyril Gane's crap. You know that.
Yeah.
Your mic's gone.
You muted.
For a lot of modern fans, Jon Jones probably isn't the, you know, this absolute GOAT that everyone else says he is. You know, you look at someone like GSP, you do your research, you go, oh, he came back and won. You know, it's that sort of thing. So for guys who have maybe got into MMA last 5 years, Jon Jones, you know, it's just more by name and by how they tell you how good he is, and then you watch him and go, is he that good? So look, of course he's one of the greatest of all time, but I do think is this for a modern MMA fan, this will have changed how people feel about him, because that, you know, I'm not sure if this is true or not, but I saw someone say it, so I'll just ask, did he do this sort of thing with Chael Sonnen, like where he really avoided that fight, even though he didn't?
No, he just pulled out. Yeah. Well, he was supposed to fight. He was supposed to fight somebody, I can't remember off the top of my head, and then he was supposed to fight Chael Sonnen on a late replacement, and then he's pulled out because it's a late replacement.
I think in terms of what you said about the modern day fan, I said it on the podcast several weeks ago, when it comes to being the greatest of all time and the genuine greatest of all time, if you really wanted that status and to solidify it over any debate with GSP or anything, it'd say, right, the next best generation is coming through and he's challenging me. Tom Aspinall, like, yeah, all right, is probably the scariest challenge out of the lot, but I'm willing to take it to prove that I'm not just the best of the previous generations and the current, I'm the best of the up and coming as well. That's the way I would have liked to see it from a fight fan's perspective. You know, I think but Jon doesn't have that mentality anymore. Like,
he didn't have to win that fight against Tom Aspinall. I know, obviously, and that probably doesn't mean nothing to him, but like, I don't think people would have looked at that fight and gone, oh, you lost to Tom Aspinall. Oh, that's pathetic. You know, GSP lost fights. You know, the only guy in MMA that can be in that conversation that never lost a fight is Khabib. And that's because he retired sort of early, you know, due to other stuff. So, I don't understand really. I mean, look, if he doesn't want to take the fight, you can't force him to. But it does stain the legacy, because I agree in the sense of, if he'd have lost that fight to Tom Aspinall, well done on, you know, I think people would say, oh, what a legend. He took that fight. He was outmatched. He was, you know, everything.
Especially if he would have took it, if he did get, say in hindsight, if the fight did happen, Tom were to beat him and Jon was humble about it afterwards, that would be, people giving him even more credit for that. They'd be like, right, all right, fair play. You didn't duck from the challenge, and that's how it ended. You've been humble for it. And who knows, that might have lit another fire inside of Jon Jones to have a rematch.
He might have won the fight. This is the other thing.
I know, and this is the crazy thing. I know.
Impossible.
No, it wasn't at all. Tom Aspinall is very beatable. We've seen it, yes, years ago, but we've seen Tom Aspinall tap out to Stuart Austin. Yeah, he's a different beast now, but this is Jon Jones that we're talking about. We're not talking about Stuart fucking Austin right now, are we? We're talking about who's very debatable as the greatest of all time. But it's just a shame that we're never going to get to see it.
Yeah, and I wish we could see Aspinall and Ngannou instead, but Dana wants to be petty, so.
Yeah, I know, and that's the thing. He's been back at UFC events now because he was in Usman's corner the other week, who we'll get on to shortly in a minute. But I'd love that. I think currently, you look at that heavyweight division. Besides Cyril Gane, Tom's fought pretty much everyone, hasn't there?
Yeah.
There's nobody that really screams massive challenge on the paper for Tom Aspinall. I think that's us being UK biased and backing his ability, but that's all so based off his amount of cage time and the way he's destroying these top guys with no problem. He's taking care of them, no problem. So yeah, I'd be all for that. If Dana was to be open to it, he just needs to crack. That would be massive. That would be just what the UFC needed in terms of money. That'd be like a similar level to that'd be a similar level to the Topuria Paddy Pimblett situation on that type of scale of fight. Massive.
Yeah. That's it. I mean, Alex, I don't know if you're crying out for Aspinall, Cyril Gane, but there aren't really any fights in that division for him. Like, they're obviously he's going to have some fights because he's the champion. But like, who's next for Aspinall, and how quick do you reckon? Because it's got to be quite quick now. I think you've got to capitalize on the momentum almost, get him out there quickly.
Yeah, Tom put a video out yesterday. Yesterday or Saturday, whenever it got announced anyway that Jon retired. So it would have been Saturday.
Yesterday, he put it out last night, didn't he? He put it out last night on YouTube.
Yeah, and he basically said he wants to be active now, wants to get in there. But the only downside to that is now every other fight what gets booked is going to pale in comparison to Tom Aspinall versus Jon Jones. I think the fight to make is probably Cyril Gane, even though he did rob Volkov of the win in his last fight. I think Volkov won that fight, but I just think that's the only way it's going to go, and I think Tom's going to make. I think if anyone's going to get past the first round or two with him, it could be Cyril Gane, just by that dancing around with him, trying to stay away from him, trying to dip in and out, so Tom's not fucking storming through him and knocking him clean out. So, I can't see anybody else in the top 5 or even the top 10 who's going to pose a threat to him and last longer than a minute. So I think the only guy you can put him in there with is Cyril Gane, but that still seems shit compared to the fight what you could have had. Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, like I said, I'm all for the opportunity for Francis Ngannou to come back, and as we said, he was in the corner of his old friend Kamaru Usman the other week.